Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gents. Thank you for joining Cabinet on the 11th of May at Symington Building. First Cabinet of the new Conservative administration. So before we get started, I'll just go around the table and do a few introductions, starting right at the very end with Councillor Dan.
Yep, Councillor Dan, representing the 2 wards in Broughton Astley and Corporate and Wellbeing. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Rosita Page, representing the Ullerthorpe ward, also County Councillor, portfolio for planning and cultural services, whatever that may mean.
Amanda Nunn, Councillor for Bosworth ward and Housing and Wellbeing.
Councillor David Page, representing one of the wards in sorry, it's been a busy day. Logan, one of the seats in Logan, and I have the portfolio for neighbourhood services.
Clive Mason, Director of Resources in Section 151.
Good evening, John Richardson, Chief Executive.
Hi, I'm Leah Mickleborough. I'm Head of Democratic Elections and Monitoring Officer.
Good evening, Liz Elliott, Deputy Chief Executive.
Good evening, Kat Hartley, Director of Communities and Wellbeing.
I'm Ella Newman. I'm the Democratic Services Manager and Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Good evening, Tess Nelson, Head of Strategic and Local Planning.
Good evening, Matthew Bills, Neighbourhood and Green Spaces Officer.
Good evening, Steve Taylor. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Manager.
Thank you very much. And I think I forgot to introduce myself as well. I'm Simon Wellband, leader of Harborough District Council. Okay, so we'll go straight on to apologies for absence. I haven't had any apologies, although I've had notice from Councillor King that he's delayed in traffic, so he will get here when he can. Declaration of members' interests. Has anyone got anything to declare? No? Excellent. Questions to Cabinet? We don't have any. Draft minutes of Cabinet of the 23rd of March 2026. I don't think any of the current Cabinet were there. So I think we're just going to have to pass it on trust. Has anyone had a chance to read the minutes? Is everybody content as much as they can be? Yeah. We need a proposer and seconder. Proposed, Councillor Page and Councillor David Page, and the other Page, Councillor Page, is seconding. Okay, thank you very much. So the first major item on the agenda is Section 106 grants application. We have 2 applications. I'm going to hand over to Steve, who will just do a bit of an outline of the report and the 2 applications. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. So just in summary, funding under Section 106 is used to develop or improve community facilities and various open spaces. Funding secured through planning obligation requests, which is an agreement by deed attached to the land that's subject of the planning permissions. Since the 1st of August 2021, the Council's adopted Section 106 process provides for applications for funding under £25,000 to be determined by the Section 106 Senior Grants Officer, but anything over than that determined by Cabinet. 2 applications have been submitted and assessed during this consultation process, and it's eligible for consideration at this meeting. The Section 106 Grants Officer and officers from the authority have considered project application 004, S106 R12627 and 005 S106 R12627 are set out in the appendix to recommend for funding in line with Community Infrastructure Levy, which is still compliance criteria. So the recommendations is that Cabinet's asked to consider the grant applications and recommend to either approve for full, part or no funding, and therefore Kibble Joint Recreational Board, the Path Upgrade and HDC Environmental Services Belfield Park, and to delegate authority to the Director of Communities and Wellbeing in consultation with legal services to enter into any necessary legal agreements to facilitate and properly document the legal obligations between the Council and any subsequent grant recipient of the funding. And the reason for the recommendation is that the recommendations put forward to Cabinet have been assessed against the requirements for funding, which are based on projects fulfilling the key S106 criteria, being still compliant and demonstrating project evidence of need. just in terms of this report, I'll point you to the financial implications of the decision. There is a table within the report that explains in more detail the planning reference number, the area that it's come from, what the contribution is, and spend by dates and available funding for that. And that's it from the report itself. Would you like me to go through the appendix one at a time now, Chair?
Yeah, one at a time. We'll start off with Kibworth. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Kibworth Joint Recreation Board, the project details for this is it's a path upgrade to Rookery Park with a total project cost of £60,110. The amount requested from section 106 is 47,359.96, and we've got documents included are included in the application, project plan, quotes, governance documents, and ward councillor support. There is other funding that has been linked to this application, and £2,750 and 4 pence has been secured from parish reserves, and there is pending funding from the community grant application of £10,000. Spend by date on this is 19th of August 2026, and the development this is coming from is from Fleckney Road, 1600166 out. Project outline for this: the path which provides access into the park from the Church Road entrance is very steep and has a surface which has deteriorated due to age, weathering and vehicle usage. The current condition of the sloping path is a health and safety issue, especially in winter, and their overall aim is to enhance accessibility, to provide a safe, well-maintained surface, to improve the gradient of the Church Road, to enhance enjoyment of the area, which includes seating, a pond and an open space, and to help increase visitor access to the park. Time frame for the project: it's intended this project will start in summer with an estimated 3-week lead time to complete. Officers are recommended to fully fund from the planning reference as previously stated, and the reasons for this are it meets the criteria for spending within the agreement, and there is a community benefit for this. In terms of additional terms and conditions, alongside the standard terms and conditions, we would ask for specific dates as to when the project has to have started due to spend by dates. The only other thing to note is that if the additional funding isn't secured by the summer, the project can be split into two separate parts, or two phases, and if the Section 106 money can't be spent by that point, the council have agreed to use their own reserves out of next year's reserves.
Thank you very much, Steve. I should point out, I should have said at the beginning, this was previously done by the subcommittee of Cabinet. We decided on a trial basis to bring these applications to a meeting of full Cabinet, hence why we're discussing it tonight. So we'll discuss Kibworth first. We'll throw it over to the Cabinet for any comments, questions. Do I have any? Councillor Dan?
Yeah, can I just ask, is there any reason why this can't be spent by the due date?
The only reason will be if they can't secure the additional funding. So what that will mean is that the project will have to be split into two phases. They will work to utilise as much of that funding as possible, but there is a possibility that at 16,000 that might have to go back to developers if the money can't be spent in time. Behind the scenes, sorry, we are working to extend the length of the spend by dates. We're waiting for some information back from developers as to whether that can happen as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? No comments. I presume we need a vote. Do we need a vote? Propose a seconder? I'm happy to propose approval.
Happy to second.
Happy to second. Thank you very much. If we could go on to the, everyone in favour? Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. And if we go on to Belfield Park next, thanks, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is reference number 005 S106 R1 2627. HTC Environmental Services are asking for this money, and the project details are Belfield Park upgrade for accessible play equipment. So the total project cost is play equipment at 48,999.65 and a path of 20,000. So the amount of question that they are requesting from section 106 is 48,999 £65, and documents included are the application, the quote, the governance documents. Other funding information, so the path is to be funded from the capital budget. And the relevant scheme is Children and Young People Facilities. There's £49,569.38 available, and there's a spend by date of this of the 5th of June 2028. And the development that's associated to the site is 0900589 out Glebe Road. Project outline, Little Bowden, the project at Belfield Park, Little Bowden, is to improve the infrastructure and play facilities for users and their guardians. It's split into 2 phases so it can be achieved as funds are available, with the first phase utilising S106 funding available specifically for play equipment at Belfield. The upgrade of the play equipment will make the designated play park accessible and widen play usage for children up to 12 years, which in turn will benefit the community, encouraging new users. The project will be managed by HDC's environmental services team, ensuring that the same quality, aesthetic and longevity is in place at Belfield as it is across the rest of Market Harbour. The project supports health, community wellbeing and social connection. As funds become available, a multifunctional half court will also be created. In terms of timeframes for the project, the intention is to deliver phase 1 of the project before the summer holidays. If this is not achieved, then it will be completed in November 2026. Office's recommendation is to fully fund from planning reference discussed previously, and the reasons for recommendation: it meets this criteria for spending within the agreement and it benefits the community. In terms of special conditions, if the grant's awarded, we would ask that standard terms and conditions are agreed at that stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Throw it open to committee. Councillor David Page.
I'm really supportive, obviously, of anything that enhances the play equipment in those playgrounds, and particularly looking at that site. I'm just curious to know what type of equipment we're talking about. One of the things that we want to do is to spend money on send equipment and upgrade entirely across the district. I just want to make sure that actually it is or it isn't part of this upgrade at this time.
I don't have that detail in front of me, unfortunately, but what I can do is I can ensure that that information comes across, and I can make sure that the team do pick up that request and requirement.
Okay, it's not just for
Clive wants to come in.
Yeah, through Chair. If you notice, it says half of 20k. That is coming out of the 200,000 that you put through as an amendment to allow inclusive access to that site to make it fully accessible.
Okay, so inclusive access, sorry, just the point here, there are 2 elements here. Inclusive access is for 3s and under, and the send equipment effectively is for all children who would access that kind of, or need access to that kind of equipment, plus young adults. So it's got to be really clear as to what this equipment actually is. It's not just one thing to say, yep, it'll be provided, but what is it? And have we consulted on what that actually means? If we're doing upgrades, they have to be meaningful and they actually have to be purposefully designed.
Thank you. I think Clive has an answer to your queries.
Yeah, my understanding is the equipment that's going in is fully compliant with what your wishes are. But where there was a bit of a shortfall was getting people potentially in wheelchairs and stuff to the equipment. That's what the path is facilitating. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Rosita Page.
Nope, nothing else to comment on. I'd just like to propose, and I'd just like to put on record, I always find it very well surprising that we always debate Section 106 grants in such detail, because after all, that is the community's money that has been allocated from the developer to overcome the negative effects. So if the community wants a certain something that meets the I-grade criteria, we should make it simple and accessible for the community to be able to spend that money. So happy to propose.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come in? No? Does anyone want a second? Councillor Nunn? Everybody happy? Show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, page 39, open space strategy review. Councillor Rosita Page, I believe this is in your portfolio. Do you want to introduce the report or do you want me to go straight to?
Let Matt take it first.
Matt, if you wouldn't mind taking us through the report, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Matthew Bills, Neighbourhood and Green Spaces Officer. I have been responsible for getting this report here for much of 2025. We've worked with consultants to deliver that. Open spaces are important. They provide the context in which built facilities, developments are built, and they provide places for people to undertake recreation, play, grow, and they allow us to deliver part of our council objectives, council priorities. The strategy has been developed through wide consultation with parish councils, other stakeholders, and we have followed best practice guidelines to do that. It's updating all of the data and information regarding the minimum provision of open spaces that we should be seeking to provide throughout the district. It splits the district into 3 analysis areas, west, middle and east. And it has analysed the amount of open space that we have per 1,000 of population in each of those areas and the district as a whole. So we've then been able to extrapolate that and say we can tell where we have a deficit of open space at the moment, where that's going to get worse over to 2041 as the local plan is developed and population increases. And so we can see that from there we have to seek new open space on development and how much open space that's got to be. But one of the additional things that the open spaces strategy will do is allow me to then, as we've been speaking about Section 106 contributions and grants going out the door, this is where those Section 106 contributions are calculated and analysed through the open spaces strategy and the development of that strategy and the work that I do, certainly for open spaces, which allows open space to be enhanced as we go. So we've got it's quite a long report, but the recommendations are that Cabinet consider the report and adopt it. There's also a design guide because we are aware that we need consistency in new open spaces throughout the district. So we've got a design guide which has been developed. There are recommendations of the strategy, and we have considered that 15-year maintenance, commuter sum for maintenance would be appropriate, and that is recommended as recommendation 4. There has been a lot of talk over the last few years about how open space is adopted by local authorities and or management companies, and the recommendation is within this report that new open space goes to parish councils, then the district council, and then management companies as a preference. We can't guarantee that that would happen because we can't force developers to do that, but with the backing of this guidance and policies and subsequent policy, then at least we can have those levers to try and pull and influence developers when they're making those decisions. The report went through, the open space strategy went through scrutiny. Scrutiny made some recommendations and asked Cabinet to consider some of those. And I'm more than happy to take any questions you have.
Thanks very much, Matt. Rosie, do you want to say anything on this? It's your report.
Well, as you know, I've inherited this report, and as everybody also knows, I find it a very confusing report. I would have liked to have seen the open spaces strategy adopt separately to the rest of it, because that would have simplified matters, because the open spaces strategy is integral to our local plan, while the rest, it is wishful thinking. And I feel that while there were a lot of people complaining about management companies and whatever, we can't resolve this. And whilst it is a very laudable attempt to help residents out, you know, you never know. The local government reorganisation might throw it all out. But we are where we are, and, you know, I will recommend this report to go forward, but I've got 2 questions. So one is, how do we get our laudable attempt to help people to set up a management company out to all of the people, not new developments, but also old developments, because there are a lot who are on that treadmill of having ever increasing prices of management companies. So how are we trying to tackle that? And yes, we are employing an officer to deal with it, but can I have confirmation that that contract is time limited, please?
The first point about how we get existing open spaces into the hands of resident management companies is a difficult one. We have obviously some new resource coming online to aid that. We've got to use best practice and experience that residents have already got, and there are some communities that have already done this, so we're trying to tap into their experience. Certainly one in Market Harborough that we can do so, but I think it's just giving people understanding and wherewithal to be able to tap into the information that they want. So that might be that we use the website and information on the website. The new officer can give advice and information to communities where open space has already been adopted, and I think that's how we've got to tackle it. I don't see that. I don't think we're going to have the resource to be able to really actively guide and undertake the work for them. It's up to the residents to be able to get themselves together and form a nucleus of a management company, residents management company. But we might be able to give them some advice and directions and signposting to do that. And what was the other point? Sorry.
Confirmation that the post is time limited for 2 years.
I think Tess is going to come in on that point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Page. So recommendation 5 is around this particular post, which identifies a budget of just over 66,000 per annum. The post is actually at the moment on a permanent basis. Within the resources section, it gives a cost for a 2-year period, which is obviously the period up to vesting day, on the basis that obviously will need to be reviewed beyond that. But at the moment, the post is down as permanent. In terms of the role of the post, it obviously will need to operate in a supportive manner to try and help residents, particularly on existing developments, which I think is going to be an interesting role for them to take on board. And that compliance role is obviously going to be both on new and on existing sites. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King, you were first.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Simon. Apologies for being late. Traffic was just horrendous. So just on this report, a couple of questions I've got for you, Matt. So first of all, when we looked at this a few years ago, I remember sitting in this room probably and having a very similar discussion about open spaces management and the maintenance sum for open spaces, commuted sum. Now, when we raised this, so going back a very long time ago, we upped it from 15 to 30 years. And then when we looked at this in 2020, we said, shall we reduce it from 30 to 20? And at the time, we were told, no, you can't do that. You can't afford to do that. Now, instead of going from 30 to 20, we're now talking of halving the time of commuted sum from 30 to 15. Now, to me, this makes, I know it says it's in the report, but I'm just wondering if you can give me the justification, or someone can give me the justification for that, because to me that seems, we've just kind of said, oh well, we don't like that, so let's go to 15. And I say we tried to change it a few years ago, and we were told then that it wasn't a good idea to change it. Just coming on to this post, now I don't want to get into the details of this, but what I'm a little bit concerned about is that this role could end up spending an awful lot of their time assisting people who bought a property, knowing, and I know this is difficult for people to hear, but people have bought a property, and they've been told when they bought the property that the open space was going to be managed under a Manco, the ins and outs of all of that. I'm not saying those things are straightforward, they're not. But then I'm just a bit concerned we're kind of raising expectations a bit of what maybe this role might or might not be able to do. And I am uncomfortable with that, because I just have a feeling that we're going to end up saying no to a lot of people. Because what you've described is information and signposting. Well, we don't need an officer to do that. We just need to stick some pages on our website, and that's not going to cost us nearly 70 grand a year to do that. So I am somewhat, and obviously we've only come to this late in the play, so it's hard for me to understand the thinking behind this. Apart from there was obviously others who had a different view on this. And finally, the other point I'm just trying to understand is, irrespective of what we say and what we previously said, we never said the council wouldn't adopt any land. We just said we would be the adopter of last resort, as that was the current policy, as I understand. We've just said it wasn't our preferred option. And by the way, give us 30 years commuted sum. And so most developers said, no, thanks, we'll go and do our own thing. And that's what they've done. So I get that. But equally, we're now going completely to the other extreme and saying, yes, please give us your open space land. And oh, by the way, we'll go for the lowest we can afford. And maybe I'm being a bit unfair. I don't know, but I'm just trying to understand. And obviously you could argue, well, we've only got 2 or 3 years left, whatever it is. So what does it matter? Well, it does matter, because these things are for the long term. And what I'm concerned about is, if residents have bought a property and, rightly or wrongly, they bought a property with those commitments, that's not my fault. It's not the other residents of the Harbour District fault that those people bought those properties with that commitment. So why am I being asked to fix their problem, given that they bought a property with, and it's buyer beware, as we all know. And, I appreciate that's not an easy subject. But, and everyone's got a different level of knowledge. So I'm then just thinking, well, why are we being asked to kind of, I'm not saying it is fixing, but we're being asked to kind of help fix the problem, whatever, for a selected group of residents, because it's not all residents, it's a number of residents. And I'm just wondering if you could just explain us a bit more the thinking behind this, assuming that you've written this report. And am I right in that you've written this report?
I have written majority of it, not all of it.
Thank you.
So yes, The open spaces strategy sets out a number of recommendations, and it recommends an adoption hierarchy. So it recommends parish council, district council, and management companies last resort. That is then backed up by some evidence regarding commuted sums, and we've reviewed all the commuted sums for maintenance. So are they up to date? Have they had indexation applied to them? And we've adjusted those, and it makes some recommendations around the term of commuted sum. And as you'll know, historically, since 2013, I think it is, the commuted sum went up to 30 years. That was the decision of the council to put it to 30 years. One of the reasons to do that was because the council at that time did not want to adopt open spaces. And if we did adopt open spaces, they shouldn't be a burden on the budget. And a 30-year commuted sum has, as you've indicated, proved to be a deterrent for developers to offer open space to us in the first place. So between 2013 and 2023, over a 10-year period, that probably worked out the way the council wanted it to. That was seen to be an issue for the district council more recently, and the district council members wanted to look at the adoption hierarchy and the term of commuted sums and make it more viable for developers to transfer open space to the district council. And that's why the commuted sum's been reviewed, and the recommendation is to lower it. If council don't want to do that, if the cabinet don't want to do that, then that's absolutely fine, because the next bit of this puzzle is to bring the policy to cabinet and get the policy adopted. So this is the evidence you can look at and say, well, okay, we've got the evidence, we've got the implications of that evidence, we can consider all that and work it through. The next bit is the policy, and the policy is then determined by cabinet and the council. What does the district council want to achieve from this? Do they want to achieve all that new development going forward is adopted by the district council, in which case you'd make your commuted sum as low as possible, because that will give more viability to developers? Or do you not want to adopt, and therefore you make your commuted sum as high as possible, and developers are just going to put it in the hands of management companies? To answer your question about people buying houses on site where a management company's been agreed, yes, that is true. Obviously, anybody buying a new house, I'm sure, would have been told that the management company, and there would be an estate fee. But estate fees have proved problematic. They increase without sometimes justification. There's very little control that we have or residents have over that, and it is a conundrum. And I can't sit here and tell you how I think you should solve it, because honestly I don't know. I have no real advice for you.
Phil.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. That's helpful. So, okay, I mean, look, I was just trying to, obviously I was here in 2013. I know what the thinking was then. We were told that if we carried on adopting land, we wouldn't have enough money to pay the bills. So that was the thinking behind that. But as I said, we would never adopt anything. It just was last resort. So, okay, so you've answered that question. Can I just ask the point, and I don't know if this is you, Matt, or someone else, but under point 6 of the report, it's got a number of points from the scrutiny committee. I'm not very clear does this mean we're being asked to approve these recommendations from scrutiny as part of this report, or is this we've actually got to go through these and decide if we want to agree to these? I'm not really very clear about that. If someone could clarify that for me, please. Thank you.
Anyone come in? Oh, Leah.
I think the report in the recommendations section at the top, it goes through each of those recommendations from scrutiny, and then has a recommendation from officers to cabinet about what we feel should be done in respect to those. And the very final one actually is already done. We did update the consultation documents for the CGR, so that was very straightforward, that one. But for example, the one that you're just talking about is recommendation 4 from scrutiny, which is about the duration of commuted sums. And so the recommendation to Cabinet is to approve 15 years rather than the 30 years as it was at current. So if you adopt recommendation 6 new recommendations, it would then include adoption of the recommendations to Cabinet in that element. But obviously it's up to you whether you wish to do that.
Yeah. Paul?
Yep, thank you. Reading the document, there's a lot of references to parish council use. Are we largely hoping, or have we already got assurances that there's a big uptake and there are no issues with the parishes taking over these? Because I'm slightly worried that they don't really or fully understand what's being said.
The larger parishes should be able to, in my view, if they already manage open spaces, should be able to take on open spaces that are currently from new development. They should be able to do that because they would have capacity to do so. My concern is probably the smaller parishes where new development takes place and there's some pieces of open space and they don't have capacity to undertake that, and that's perhaps where the district council would need to step in, or it would go to a management company.
John just wants to come in.
Yeah, if it's helpful to Cabinet, one of the biggest complaints I've had in my inbox in the last 2 years has been from residents that live on estates with management companies. They have significant issues with the quality of service that's delivered and the price that they pay for that service, and they're really dissatisfied, and there is very little recourse they have to anybody to sort that out. A number of groups that I'm in touch with want change. They feel that the prices that they pay are 3 times as much as what they can get quoted for from other contractors to deliver the service, and they can have better control over the service. The idea of the officer post, which we would put in our enforcement team under Michaela, would be to work on a number of levels. One, to ensure that the standard of open space that is put in from the outset is right through our certificates of completion. So from day one, it is like the manicured pictures that developers put in their documentation when they sell the houses, and that they deliver what they say they deliver. So it's a very much a compliance role at the outset. But for the existing management companies and residents that have got them at the moment, it would be to support them in the process of becoming directors of the company so that they can then procure and commission the services that they want for their estate. At the minute, they have no powers to do that. They're at the mercy of the developer, who have relations with the management companies that deliver the service, and then they add on layers of overheads and charges. So our residents, your residents, are being charged far more than they could be under a different model. So the post would be there to support these resident groups to take back control of their open space. And yes, they can't change the deeds of their house purchase, but we can ensure that they're getting a fair deal for the services that they're getting on their parcels of land. So it would be a time fixed post, hopefully that 2-year period, and by that time we would work through the existing management companies and support residents where they want to. And there are some good management companies that do deliver a fair price, but there are some that are not good and have been through Channel 4 watchdog, and we've seen a number of companies through that route that are not what we would want in our district for our residents. So this post would be to support the residents in this short period of time to improve their finances.
Thank you, John. David?
Thank you for those comments, John, because I'll declare an interest. I'm someone that lives on one of those developments, and not all developments are the same, as we know. And I live on the Wellington Place, or the Lubbenham View part of that development. Every conversation you have is about the management company. There are 3 or 4 separate contracts on that development. It's not all the same. And one of them, and this is where I have a real problem with Phil's view on this, which is I think it's slightly disingenuous. We have effectively provided homes, which we should be doing, but we have effectively provided it on different terms per different development. So you have one part of that development that is responsible for the roads, responsible for the street lights, responsible for the SUDs, because they were not compliant with the county council when they built those roads. They will never be adopted. I object to that whole approach. But we as a council have encouraged the development, all of those developments, and we took a decision not to adopt. And yet it's slightly disingenuous to say to residents, you knew what you were getting into, because in some cases they did, in some cases they didn't fully. And I say one of the reasons why they didn't know fully is because there was a touting of the prospect of some kind of management company that didn't materialize. And suddenly the residents find themselves having to form their own management company. And then when the lights go out, it's so it turns out that the lighting company isn't prepared to stand by its product, and the developer isn't prepared to support it, and county isn't interested because the lights aren't actually adoptable. So then the residents are then fully up for the costs associated with repairing those lights. That's one example. Yet you move then further down the road, Harvest Road, and you get into Davidson's, and I'm going to name the developers. You get Davidson's, and you have Wimpy, and you have William Davis. Three different approaches to the style of property, to the style of development. But the approach with the development, with the managing agent is the same. Three separate contracts, but actually you get a 3 to 5 year guaranteed payment for the services that are offered, and then it's open slather. They can charge whatever they want after that point. So you don't know what you're getting, Phil. And I would say this too. I've been there 4 years. The development will take another year and a half to finish. It was being developed probably about a year and a half, 2 years before me. Started in 2016, I think, when it originally got approved. I think maybe started in 2018. Can't remember. But the point is, what people were buying into is not what they've actually got. There are no football pitches. That's changed because it's too expensive. There's no marina. That's not likely to happen. These were things that were on the glossy brochures that people thought they were buying into. Nice place to live. Now, as it is, we've got a beautiful park. Now, we as a council tend to think that that park isn't actually part of our, if you like, infrastructure, but it is, because it's used by all the residents. People come and park their cars and they walk their dogs there, and it's beautiful along the canal. But it's the residents of that development that are paying for it for the benefit of the rest of the town. Now, yes, they pay rates, and they're happy to do that, but I think it is slightly unfair, that whole arrangement. And I think the idea here is I totally support a strategy, the open spaces strategy. And I also think for the period we've got left, to have someone within the authority that's actually able to advise, not necessarily to get involved in the legalities and anything else like that, to act as an agent provocateur. I think that would be very dangerous, and I think that would actually get the backs up of developers. But I do think there needs to be somebody who's able to watch the backs of residents and actually advise, because I think it's a really, really difficult situation and a power imbalance between the residents and the developers, because actually the developers aren't interested as soon as they handed over those parcels of land to the management company, and the management companies are actually not interested in trying to set up, as I have tried to do, residents associations. They see that as a direct attack on their rights as a management company. So anything that we can do to assist residents who are stuck in those arrangements, by choice, admittedly, Phil, but also through ignorance as well at the same time, and actually not having command of the full details, I would recommend that we certainly support this. But one thing I do want to ask you, Matt, after that, sorry, that long-winded statement in defence of everybody, is I want to know what kind of teeth we're proposing for that role. It's a lot of money for just an advisory thing, and that's where I probably do agree with Phil, that actually we could provide leaflets that are checked out legally. This is the legal recourse you have, and blah, blah, blah. So I just want to know what added value we get from that position itself.
I think that over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been aware that the capacity within enforcement to ensure that landscaping is delivered as per landscape plans, and we chase up developers effectively and get, as John says, the completion certificates, and ensure that the landscaping is in line with the landscape plans that have been delivered and the designs that were delivered, and the quality is fine. I think that is one of the areas that needs to be more resources there, because I think at the moment we are aware that we're struggling with that, and there's a lot of work starting to come through from making a change in 2013. It probably took 6 or 7 years for that really to start to have an effect, and for us to understand as a district council what the implications of that were. And it has been more work, and it's more residents are more acutely aware of the quality that they want to aspire to within their open spaces. They're aware they're going to have to pay for it. If things go wrong, again, as you've outlined, they're going to have to pay for that. So they're much more on it themselves, and they're holding officers, district council, planning, the planning system to account far more than has been necessarily in the past. So I think that resource within that role will start to address some of those things. Yes, we can do signposting, we can do leaflets, but I think part of the role will be that advice given to parish councils, to resident management companies, will be really important, and it'll be just that face-to-face understanding it. And that officer will start to be able to use best practice that they've seen from other parts of the district or other districts, and start to advise communities and parish councils in the best way to move forward with a residence management company. And we do have some examples. I mean, Bowden Ridge is one of them, where they've set up their residence management. They had a management company there. They weren't very happy with it, but they've now swapped to have their own, set up their residence management, and they want to talk to us as a district council to undertake the maintenance on their behalf. So that's where we can start to, our new contractor, when it's in place, can start to look at providing services for resident management companies, probably at a better quality, better rate, and there will be that redress for communities when if things go wrong. So hopefully that will give some reassurance, but it's going to take that resource in place, I think, certainly for maybe that's a time limited period and things embed themselves. But I think at the moment we're aware that there perhaps isn't the resources there to undertake that work.
Yeah, David, do you want to come back?
Sorry, just one more question on that then. So I recognise that you get into some of the planning permissions and planning enforcement around some of these things. I think one of the biggest questions for residents coming into those developments is, I thought they were going to do that, and then you have to go back through the planning tool to find it all. One of the greatest things that role could actually help with is actually bringing together for that resident group, if that's what they're looking at, all of those planning documents that effectively gave permission to that development and the developers in it to develop certain things, and holding developers to account properly. I think that is the issue that really rubs up residents the wrong way, which is they've moved in, they were promised X, they'd got Y, there's a disparity. So why was that allowed? And what's going to happen now to bring the developers to book? I mean, we have enough trouble trying to get county to get involved in some of these things regarding roads and lighting and so forth. But I think it's more, apparent for us, because we're the planning authority effectively, to take some strong action in this space and to ensure that the developers understand their responsibilities, and we then provide some support to the residents to make sure they can be held to account. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amanda, I think you want to come in next.
Sorry. I'm not going to start an enforcement at the minute because that would get me going. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify something. John, you've just said this post was temporary. Tess said it was permanent. Trying to work out which it is.
Yeah, really good question. I think the recommendation says permanent, so that's the proposal. But I think in the report itself, it says time limited to 2 years. So I think there's an error there, but the recommendation is permanent. But clearly, if Cabinet want to make it fixed for 2 years, then that would be your recommendation tonight. So I'll pass that one back to yourselves as how you'd like us to take that forward. But also the report does recommend that because it's not in budget at the minute, we have to go to council for this. So what we can do is work up the detail with Councillor Page and Matt and bring the detail of the post, so you've got absolute clarity and a sight line on what the post will do when it comes to council. So we can do that for the council meeting.
Thanks, John. Phil?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. So I think if we're going to do that, then I would really like to see some idea of what the KPIs are that this role is actually going to be measured against, in terms of what does success look like. Because again, I'm not disagreeing with what you've said, David. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit. But I think on the other hand, if we're going to spend money on, trying to help residents who, have got into this situation, how to kind of get themselves out of it, so to speak. We just need to be very clear about what because I imagine it's one of those roles that's very easy to get sucked in and diverted into kind of rabbit holes that you don't necessarily want them to do. So I'd be just concerned about that. But I mean, that's the only thing really I'd got about it. I mean, the 15 years, Matt's explained that, but it just seems we've bounced between the two, and it's just frustrating really, because
I can calculate commuted sums for every combination
No,
of years you like.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I tried
Don't
to do it in this report,
Don't
and it
do
got
that.
so. I mean, Councillor
No.
Mrs. Page has complained about the complications of the report, and it is complicated. But we can adjust the commuted sum for whatever Cabinet feel is right for the council, and that could be changed if you feel in future that it's not working the way you wanted it to work. You could still change that, because it's part of this is the evidence, and the policy and guidance will be the thing that I use every day in my work to inform
Okay.
developers and landscape schemes and
No, that's
development
great.
management. So they're the comments, and that could be changed relatively simply.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, John just wants to come in on.
Yeah, just on that point, just to remind Cabinet that the open spaces are recharged as special expenses. So all the cost will be charged back to the taxpayer through special expenses. So there is no longevity of cost on the district council, for that work. So it's all recharged out. So it's not district or future unitary funds that will be affected by the policy.
Thank you. Rosie?
Thank you. Just clarity, please. Matthew said that policy guidance will come back, and that will include the remit of the post. So when do you foresee that? Because I think that is really, really important, and that we work on this. Of course, one of the things is that we can't reinvent the wheel. And I know that people who are in management company trap, they feel very passionate about it. However, we have the people who are out there who are not in that trap, and you can see, and I'm all for a good a discussion. And as you can see, we're open to all sorts of views here, and nothing was predetermined. But the thing I like to see, it is real clarity and guidance in order not to raise too higher expectations either. Because if we are starting to raise expectation and we can't deliver, I think that would be the most unkindest thing we can do. The other thing I would like to very much see that in that policy guidance, I wind back. So as a planning authority, yes, we are having to permit houses. We are under the cosh of government. It is not our decision, and to help residents it is a very laudable step forward. However, I feel that within the policy guidance, we should also look at lobbying government, because at the end of the day, government are enforcing housing numbers onto us, and they haven't got any due regards to the rest of the citizens and to the people who are buying these homes. So, yes, and so that ends my waffle. I did say I would like to move the recommendation, but I would also like to see in the recommendation a reference to the post being for 2 years, and we can take it and change it at another thing. And can we also look at bringing a report back in about, I don't know, a time limited, that we can then look at, what we've achieved, what we've done, and probably, improve where we haven't. What's your view on that?
I think Clive just wants to come in on the post.
Yeah, there's a bit of clarity here. There's members seem to be got a bit of confusion between two things. The recommendations definitely says permanent. The original bid that went in the original budget was permanent. In paragraph 4.1 in the financial implications, it does say it's permanent, but when I pulled these together, what I showed was the impact of the costs for the 2 years up to vesting day. Okay, so if you want it to only be 2 years, you need to change effectively the recommendations currently in the report. So it does tally through. It's just that maybe my wording wasn't as strict as what it could be, but I was just demonstrating what the cost and therefore the impact on reserves was up to vesting day.
Can you clarify? So if we are looking at LGR, would it not be prudent to go for a 2-year post, and then if anything else changes, you can always go back? Because if we're saying it is permanent and a person takes on the job, and then in 2 years' time, LGR says, this is a load of rubbish, I'm not playing this game, it would not be fair. So if we're putting a timeline on it, we are actually making it far more fair and transparent.
Well, that's down to us, isn't it? Whether we make it 2 years. Clive.
Right, okay, so the one comment I would make, if you have somebody on a fixed term contract, they'll work like Billy-O for the first 12 months, and the next 12 months they'll start moving one eye to their next job because their contract's coming up to an end. So if you're wanting to change policy for the long term, you will lose that impact. It's up to you. I mean, in 2 years' time, it's no longer your cost, is it? But,
Yeah. David?
Can I just say I totally agree with that. And I think actually the question is over. None of us might be here actually in 2 years. Don't wish to say that, but it's an obvious situation. But I think we should make it a permanent role, because I think we want to recruit the best person for the role. They will know full well that we are moving towards local government reform and what that might mean. So I think it's entirely up to that individual at that point to make that decision. I think if you limit it to 2 years, you're going to reduce your recruitment pool.
I would agree with that, to be honest, because they're going to know what they're coming into, right? They're going to know what's happening. So, yeah, okay. Sorry, Matt.
Sorry, you had a couple of questions in there about the timing of the report coming back. The policy and guidance is the report. I put that guidance together. Roughly, it's with Tess and David at the moment, just checking it and go through CMT. So that could come very quickly back to Cabinet. The officer post, I haven't had anything to do with that at the moment. So I think we've got to do a person specification and decide what the job role is going to be in detail. So obviously taking advice from Cabinet today, we'll be able to do that. So I would imagine that will be relatively quickly, but probably a bit after the policy and guidance. That will be my piece of work that I will do. Coming back then for Cabinet to assess the success or not, or implications of the way that the policy's been set up, yes, we can do an annual review if you want. That would be, I'd be more than happy to do that. So we can look at the number of, I would need a little bit of guidance about what Cabinet want to see, but I would imagine it'll be the number of sites that have come on stream, how we've been able to, how they've been adopted, where the commuted sum came from. Was it a management company? Was it district council or parish council? And then ones that are currently in the hands of management companies, have we been able to influence any of those and get them into the hands of management companies? Are we doing that work ourselves, or are resident management companies employing a third party contractor at a better rate? Those sort of things I would imagine is the sort of information that you'd want coming back. And from that we can gauge, is it a success? Is it not? Do we need to change anything?
That sounds like a perfect plan, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Can I just add one caveat to that though, Matt? Because I don't want it to be seen that we are ideologically opposed to management companies. There are some very good management companies. I don't want it to be seen that we as a council are forcing, not forcing, but encouraging residents down this pathway. I think it needs to be really clear that there is a support for them if they choose to do so. And if there are issues, that we are here to help them find some solutions. Residents, that is. I don't think we should be positioning it in the way that it just came across, because I'm certainly not against management companies per se.
No, I wasn't intending to be against management companies or pro or for or against any way of doing this. As you'll appreciate, in my role, I see good, bad, and ugly of resident management, of all management companies. Some of them I can't fault, but we still get complaints. One at Lutterworth, the site's brilliant. I can't fault it, but John will tell you he's had letters, and what can we do about it? And that's the frustrating thing, I think, and I've said this right from the start. It's frustrating for councillors when they stand in front of a group of residents and you don't have an answer for them. You can't have a solution for them. But it's just as frustrating for officers to do that. So we need to have some way where we can at least say to them, we can support you. We can try, you could try these avenues. We can't guarantee you anything, but we can support, give you advice, help you find your way through it. But it may not be the total solution. And I've always said, you know, we may be sitting around this table in 5 years' time and saying, didn't work. We haven't been able to influence anything, but at least we've tried.
Okay, thank you. I think we probably need to bring this to a conclusion now. So I think there's two things outstanding. One of them was whether we wanted to make it a permanent role or for 2 years. I mean, I'm inclined just to keep it as a permanent. Phil, I'll come to you in a second. And the other is about clarity over the role itself. But from what's been said, that detail will come back when it's presented to council. Phil.
Yeah, no, I think it's not worth the thing with the permanent temporary. It's kind of a bit immaterial because LGR in itself will mean there's a review of all posts and operation. Whatever the new council is, will do a total review of all its structures. So that's neither here nor there, really, to be honest. And Matt, what you just went through in terms of KPIs, I think that's the sort of thing. Well, I would be looking to see is, you know, what difference has it made, this role? Because if it's going to make a difference, we need to know it's going to make a difference fairly quickly. Because, you know, it's not good as finding out in 5 years. It's not. We want to know fairly quickly, you know, it's actually making a difference. I would say, because that would be what I would say anyway. But no. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think for wearing another hat, this is a particular issue that comes up in my daytime job a huge amount, and it affects a very large number of residents. And what I would say is not all of them are completely ignorant. I think, you know, a lot of them are generally stuck in a trap. So it's good to see we are doing something about it. Rosie, you proposed. I am happy to second the recommendations unless there's anything anyone else wants to say. I think we move to the vote. Is everybody happy to approve the recommendations? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Any other business? There is none. So the meeting is closed at 6:03. Thank you.